Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Allen Cohen of AllenSamuelCohen.com. Allen, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And what I want to do was just read a little bit more about Allen so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's been doing. And Allen Cohen is a professional certified executive and team coach, public speaker, and author who has built a 30-plus year career around the idea that no matter the industry or challenge, breakthroughs come from mastering effective communication. Spending decades as both a marketing expert and human resource consultant, he presided over the successful launch of the Harry Potter series as a Scholastic's director of marketing, as well as serving as the director of communications for the Broadway League, representing the Tony Awards. Allen has worked with global organizations including Bloomberg, Tiffanys, NBC, Bravo, American Express, Skadden Arps, Edelman and MetLife, and hundreds of small businesses and solopreneurs, and speaks frequently to groups and at conferences on the power of connection. Allen, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am ready.
Awesome. Let's do it. And I was definitely looking forward to this. I know we talked a lot offline about the whole Harry Potter, but I wanted to kick everything off here a little bit more about your background and what led you to kind of get started with your business.
Sure. Well, it's a great question. I sometimes laugh. I think it's like I should run a program called like Oops, I'm CEO, because like suddenly I became head of a company, and before I knew it, I was called to do all those things that you have to do when you're running a company. I don't think I expected the magnitude of what it would be. But I worked in public relations and marketing, little stint in human resources for up until 12 years ago, and we'll talk about the Harry Potter experience. But that really was what was my pivot into coaching, because soon after I launched that publicity event, I moved into coaching and running my own business. So that moment for me was really noticing what an effective team does and what an ineffective team does, and wanting to help organizations run more effective teams. So the Harry Potter experience was a great example of a cohesive team that was able to deliver huge results. And so I sort of began my study there, and then I went into a formal coaching program and started doing that, as a business.
Nice. Well, yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And I think that I always say, like, when you really peel back the onions of a business or organization, like sometimes you forget it's made up of people, and those people have to be able to do a lot of those core skills, that you help out organizations with, that you forget that there's teams, and the teams have to be able to work together no matter the different personalities and all those things. So I definitely appreciate you, being able to do that.
Sure. And I had also been a part of some pretty dysfunctional teams, teams that embodied all the toxins. So getting to see it from both sides has been really helpful, and especially in the work that I do with my clients. Usually clients are not hiring me because their teams are already working so well together.
Right.
So it's good for me to be able to meet them where they are and acknowledge that teams have an evolutionary process. So.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. Just like, us individuals, wherever you are, it doesn't mean that's where you have to end. So a lot of times you can develop and get better. But it's funny you said that, because I thought you kind of alluded to it before, just how sometimes I believe the greatest teachers are sometimes the dysfunctional or the things that you don't want to do. So sometimes you can learn just from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about what you're doing with these teams. Could you break down what you're doing as a coach and how you're serving your clients?
Sure. So my the foundation of everything that I do is emotional intelligence, and which is a tool that I use that I'm certified in, and I help teams really align around what the core emotional intelligence elements is important to them, whether it's empathy or trust or problem solving or any number of different aspects of emotional intelligence. I work a lot with EQ and a lot around helping teams build trust without trust falls. We don't do trust falls, but we really get into the core of why teams are working well together and where the breakdowns are, and understanding also human behavior. Where do our defenses kick in when we're under stress? What are some of those ineffective behaviors that show up, and what to do about them? So really helping teams build their kind of resiliency muscle, build the real important strengths to get them through both the good times as well as the difficult times is so important. I feel like in a lot of ways, if you think about teams, like use the analogy of a sports team. So sports teams, they spend a lot of time practicing, and they don't spend a whole lot of time in play. They spend, I would say, 80% of their time practicing being a team and 20% out on the field. I think teams in business need to follow that same principle, and we have it reversed, where we're always like in it. We're just always like sort of moving the shit around, but we're not spending any real quality time learning shared language, developing ground rules for how we want to engage with each other in conflict, out of conflict. So I hope teams really practice being a team so that they build that muscle.
Yeah, and that's definitely huge. I'm glad I'm a big sports junkie, so I appreciate you for breaking that down. Just, remembering, like, by the time, you watch a game or see an athlete or whoever in action, they have done so many hours outside of that to develop that skill for the actual, show. So they've been working at that. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of times as business owners, we don't necessarily adopt that mindset of developing ourselves as leaders, developing our teams and our organizations in that exact same way.
And I think that's even more significant now when you've got so many virtual teams and organizations going through such change at such rapid speed. I think that it's really important that teams learn how to engage both virtually as well as live and in person. And it's an art. All right. Teams that really play together, work well together. They spend a lot of time developing that discipline.
Right. Exactly. And it definitely takes, practice in order to do that. So you might have already touched on this, but would you consider that to be like your secret sauce, what you feel kind of distinguishes you and sets you apart?
I think that there are a couple of things. I think there are a ton of coaches out there, right? A ton of coaches, a ton of consultants, and you can't take 5 steps without stepping over one. But I've helped people connect and communicate for 25 years, and I work at the intersection of communication and connection. I think that, having worked with big brands, working on the being a part of building a movement with Harry Potter, I think I've seen the power of connection. So everything that I do is rooted in how people connect and in a meaningful way. So I think that's I think my model for helping people connect also spans across all businesses, because it doesn't, I'm industry agnostic, even though I've worked a lot in media and entertainment. I've worked with law firms and and financial services firms. So it doesn't really matter the industry. For me, it's everything is about how we connect in real time, how we build trust. So I've got a lot of experience in communication and human resources and marketing, but the narrative, the storyline is all about how we connect.
Yeah. And I think that's so big, especially in this day and age with, so many tools to connect. I think I read something where it almost seems that we're lonelier than we were before with all these opportunities to connect. So it's great that you're actually helping people to understand that it sounds like connection is not just, oh, we're friends on Facebook, or, we work in the same office, but it's something a lot deeper than that, and how to do that and cultivate that.
Yeah. So so my new book is called The Connection Challenge: How Executives Create Power and Possibility in the Age of Distraction. It really addresses that very thing. And I talk about something called connection alchemy, which is really what explosive results that can happen when all of these touch points are addressed. So first and foremost, it's connecting with ourselves, who we are at our core, what's important to us, why that matters, what our talents are, what our strengths are. That's first. Then it's really connecting to a team and looking at those points of alignment. And then the third is that the team and the individual need to be connected to a strong purpose, a strong why, and then all of those permutations and combinations need to happen. Team to individual, team and individual to purpose, and so forth. And when all those things are aligned, and that's a lot of the work, is alignment, because we get so into the weeds of who did what, and pointing fingers and blame and all that. But when we can kind of elevate the conversation, get that helicopter view of what's important to each person and the team, and then something larger, then great things happen. So that's I don't know if I answered your question. I just went on a tangent, but that's what I'm about.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely huge, because I think that, and especially like that you touched on the idea of making sure that everybody has that helicopter view, because I think a lot of times, and I've read before that a lot of times as a leader, you're trying to get people, the right people in the right seats. And a lot of times understanding that this is what this person's mission or goal is, so you understand and can have a deeper, relationship, connection, and engagement with that person. It's like you said, definitely an art, but it's something that leaders should be aware of, and we should try to execute as much as possible.
Yeah. So even when I work with teams, I'll even look at individual values against organizational values, so that people can look at how they can fit their personal values into the larger value set of the organization. And unless those things are really misaligned, usually we can find a way to marry the two. But we know that employee engagement is a big issue, and if employees aren't feeling purposeful and feeling like their voice matters and feeling like they aren't part of something bigger, they're not going to stay, or you're only going to get a small percentage of what they're capable of.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And you might have already touched on this, but this is an app, a book, or it can even be something big you wanted to kind of touch on with your book, but it's something that makes you more effective and efficient.
Yeah. Well, there are two things. One is on the mindfulness side, and then the other is a little more tactical. So I believe in meditation as a means to access creativity, and so I love Headspace, the app Headspace. It's one of my favorites. So, I try to do at least 10 minutes a day with the app, or just focused, just focusing my mind and calming my thoughts. I've got a very busy brain, as so many entrepreneurs and CEOs do. Right. And then I use Trello. I like Trello a lot for project management, because I have so many different projects and different buckets. And, and I'm finding the writing on napkins doesn't really work so well anymore. So having an app where I can just drop in a note in the respective bucket is helpful. And as working with more project teams and things like that, it's great to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I'm really big into using project management systems, and I too have tried to write on napkins. And if you find any that have my handwriting, then please return it back, because I can't find half the ones I used to.
bringing it back to Harry Potter, the story was that J.K. Rowling wrote those books on napkins,
Oh,
which
really?
is, yeah, that's a little exaggerated, but
Yes, but it's
in
good for
cafes. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Well, awesome, awesome, also. Now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget, and this is a word of wisdom or a piece of advice, or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
I would say, I was joking before about the, oops, I'm a CEO, but I think it did really happen. It kind of happened to me. Suddenly I was running a business and right at the time where the economy like just crashed, which was
Mhm.
really crazy. Fortunately, I started doing career coaching initially because there were all those out of work financial
Uh,
Wall Street guys needing to
mhm.
figure out their next thing. But I would say have a plan. I know that sounds so basic, but I had no plan. I'm kind of a manifester of opportunity, and but that doesn't necessarily get you where you want to go as quickly as you want to get there. So I would say yes to this and say yes to that, and partner up with this person or that person, and it just didn't. It was interesting, and and I learned a lot, but it didn't necessarily lead me on an ineffective path. I would also say I made a lot of pretty poor decisions around partnering.
Mhm.
So it's one thing to like JV with someone and do a strategic kind of one-off thing to see how you gel, but I jumped into some business partnerships just because I thought that other person could bring something to the table that I couldn't,
Right.
and I should have really planned that out a little bit better because they ended up being expensive detours.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to a coach. I should have talked to a coach before I took that path.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense, and it's funny because I feel like CEOs, entrepreneurial type people, especially creatives, a lot of times we're so positive driven that it's hard to see the downside of something.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I know myself, I'm probably talking more about myself than anything else, but just having and understanding that. And I think sometimes there's no substitutes a lot of times for experience. You try to tap into the experts, the
Absolutely.
coaches, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to go through it, and then that's the real measure.
Yeah, but I do. I love helping my clients not make the needless
Yeah.
mistakes,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's some mistakes that are just, they're good learning, and the only way you learn is if you do it yourself. But I
Yeah.
can also probably save people a lot of a lot of the heartache
Yeah.
because I did it myself.
Right. And that helps out a lot. Tapping into
Yeah,
somebody else's experience is even better.
yeah, totally.
So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Alan, what does being a CEO mean to
Right.
you?
Well, to me, I mean, my version of CEO is not everyone else's version of CEO. So for me, I would say it's more about being the CCO, right? I'm the Chief Connection Officer. Like,
Mm,
I know some people like use that term to refer to their HR person or their marketing person, but I actually think the best CEOs are connectors in every sense of the word. They're actively connecting to their clients, to their employees, to themselves. They're doing the mindset work to make sure that they're sharp. They're looking at making connections between people and situations. They're looking at the person within their organization to whom they need to connect with the most, and that's often the person who is not the obvious person. It might be the unsung hero, or it might be the person who's struggling, but it's about that. Again, I know that gets harder as your organization scales,
yeah.
but I think every day you should be thinking about who do I need to connect to in a more meaningful way.
Mhm.
But definition of CEO, I think what it means to me more broadly is I think each CEO, each entrepreneur, each business owner, we each have something very special to contribute. It might be your ability to make decisions, or your ability to be transparent or authentic or vulnerable or whatever it is. That's the thing. So it's really defining your own CEO brand, and then
Mhm.
just owning that. Whatever is your secret sauce, like be that CEO. You don't need to be a cookie cutter version of some CEO that you saw on The Boss. It's the undercover boss. It's like really, it's being your own best. And I love the idea that every day as a CEO, we get to wake up in the morning and figure out what we want to create. What's the possibility that we want to bring into a reality? That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And scary.
You're absolutely right about that. It is very exciting and scary exactly at the same time. But no, I think that's a great perspective, great definition, just because a lot of times, like I kind of talked about, I think life in general, definitely business and organizations is all about relationships and building connections and having meaningful connections. So if you're aware of, what is your secret sauce, but also able to kind of, I think, also see secret sauces in other people, I think that's opportunity for really meaningful connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's an entire industry that's built out of trying to make everybody good at everything and focusing on people's gaps and weaknesses and liabilities. And I actually think that that's not nearly as effective as really recognizing what people's innate talents are and building from there, and looking at how you can use those talents and strengths to address any kind of gaps that could be really getting in the way of optimal performance. But I think we've got it wrong to focus so much on the B that you got in math versus the A+ that you got in English. And that was me, by the way. It was more like a C in math and an A.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think it goes back to like even what you're doing as far as like building teams, because if you have a strong team, you understand that there's different people that have those different strengths. Right. And it's not necessarily that you need to be and do everything. You have somebody that might be a cubicle over or a Skype session over to be able to say, hey, can you help me out with this? And then you are able to build a stronger brand, a stronger organization and business.
Yeah. Well, and I share the story in my book, but my assistant director, publicity director in the Harry Potter books is actually today, her name is Chris. Today, she's still very good friends with J.K. Rowling and runs the foundation, the publicity for the foundation here in the United States. And I elevated Chris to really run the publicity for Harry Potter against all of my bosses telling me that I needed to be the star of that show. But that was because she had a remarkable talent and a remarkable relationship with the author and an astute ability to solve problems and ran circles around me. And so like I could have been the ego guy and kept her back because I felt the need to be in the front of it and all that. But now I think as a leader, our job is to shine the light on the people who are really doing the work and elevate them, right? Elevate them in every way that we can.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal point, just because a lot of times that ego does overtake a lot of people that are in these positions where no one can be better than them. But in reality, that to me doesn't create a true win, because you're stifling somebody else's creativity. You may even be leading them to not even want to be in that organization or work with you. But when you're able to kind of cultivate and build people, that's truly where you're doing great things.
There's a quote, I think it was Travis Bradbury, who's one of the leaders in emotional intelligence. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. I've always learn from others.
Absolutely. Well, Allen, I truly appreciate your time. What I want to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and then of course how best they can get a hold of you.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to invite everybody to visit my website. I'm offering a free excerpt, free chapter and intro of my book, The Connection Challenge. So visit allensamuelcohen.com /sample/chapter, or you just go to the website and it just pops up. So I'd love to get your feedback. And really, I would say just, for everyone who is running a team, for executives who are responsible for teams and for all team leaders, just know that you've got this great opportunity to really excel by bringing out the best of your team. And sometimes we're not able to see what the best is because we're in it, but I'm happy to chat with anyone about what those possibilities might be and how I might be able to support them in developing their teams.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate you for doing that. Appreciate that for you for making that your life's work as well too. So we'll make sure to have those links in the show notes so that everybody can get a hold of you and of course get a copy of your book. But again, I appreciate your time and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you.